Okay, so make sure your phone or any electronic device is off. Laptops, you don't need your laptop. You're going to take notes the old school way. Especially when we get into the formulas, kind of tedious to have to go and get the standard deviation formula for the population and put it in your notes. So you really don't need a laptop unless there's some special accommodation where that is warranted. Okay, so statistics. All right, so, oops. So I'm going to keep sort of a list of objectives, things we're going to talk about, concepts, etc., just to make sure that I cover everything I want. If I don't, then I can kind of go back and say, okay, we need to go back and do this. And then again, make sure that you guys feel okay about everything. So, so the first chapter is, like I said, over terminology, kind of some foundational stuff that we'll be using again and again. So what I want to do first is have you come up with the what, when, why, where, why, and how we use statistics. So you don't have to come up with exactly the right answer. But in your notes, I'd like you to just write a couple things about that. So I might say, stats, and then say, so what might I learn? When I say learn, I mean encoding new information. Okay, so most of you know about means, so you don't need to write a mean. Okay, is there something, whether it's a terminology that you know of, or just kind of a concept or something that you're going to learn how to do? What your expectation is to learn how to do. So what, when. Okay. This is kind of worded strangely. Okay, so when is the best time or situation to use stats? Don't say in stats class or when I take the test. When would be a good time where you can take your knowledge of stats, okay, or statistics and use it, okay? What is really one or two purposes of stats besides having to take the class because it's required? When, where, right? Where, let's take this. This is more of a study skills type of question. You kind of apply to everything. And then how? Wait. Why? Why? It kind of goes along. Some of these kind of repeat. And we'll carry over from what I talked about on Tuesday. And then how? So, in so many words, these questions are what I might learn, okay, in stats. When is the best time or situation to use stats, use my knowledge? Where is the best place to study stats? I might even say to study material, okay, for any class. Why would you study stats? This kind of goes along with some of these. And how do I do stats? So that's kind of an open to interpretation. So what things are you going to do in stats? What skills are you going to learn? What are you actually going to be able to do when you walk out of class on the final day, which, by the way, I need to mention that too, so if you can remind me about that. So, yeah, so I just want a couple things. She won't be any long essay or anything, just if you want to write what, when, where, why, how, and just write a couple things. This will set us up really well for what we're going to talk about in a minute, okay? So just on your own, just think about, we're going to think about stats, because we're in stats class, so that makes sense. And just think about stats and what your expectations are, okay? Okay, so let's talk about this and then move on. Okay, so I don't know your names yet, so unfortunately I just can't call on random people because that's really fun. But I will just, if you want to raise your hand, I will answer. And then next time, hopefully I'll know a little bit about who you are, or be able to recognize at least. Okay, so what you might learn. Yeah.
Yeah, so I said the difference between sample and population sizes and how they can relate to like real world stats.
Great. That's pretty much what we're going to do today. Great. Anything else what you might learn? represent data. Interesting. Okay, we'll get to that. All right, let's skip on. So over when is the best time or situation to use stats besides a test? Yeah.
Like when you're reading research papers.
Sure. You get much more of that when you get into 290.
Anytime you're drumming a decision, like a decision-making process, you look at the statistics behind.
For sure. And it doesn't mean when you're trying to make a decision, you're looking specifically at data, the significance between this group and analyzing the test statistic and all of that. But what it does, what stats does, it does allow you to learn those skills. So those neurons for making decisions are gonna build, okay, millions of neurons for making decisions, because that's what we're gonna practice this semester, is just making decisions about data, but you'll be able to transfer that to other decisions you make in your life. Good. One more for when.
Like advertisements and commercials.
Okay, ads and commercials, great. Where's the best place to study?
ASU.
That is very broad. Yeah, covers a lot of ground, literally. All right. So we're done with that question. Okay, let me just tell you a little bit about this, okay? Something called a context effect. For example, you guys are all gonna learn and do some studying about stats in this classroom. So what research says is that if you were to take the test in a different room, then you're not going to perform as well as you would if you were in this room, okay? So another one is called a spacing effect. So you want to study sort of in different places throughout the semester, like for a test, because then what you're doing is you're encoding different places, like the library or MU or your apartment or your dorm, along with the material. So then when you get to the test, sometimes something will trigger the material. Like, oh, I was in my living room with that thing on TV when I studied this. Okay, so we have these kind of cues and hooks. So generally speaking, that's just a couple things, but to study stats or anything else, just to keep that in mind as far as where. Then why do we study stats? I think we sort of answered that already.
To understand the data behind the numbers.
Oh, sure, to understand the data behind the numbers, okay. Have you ever heard numbers don't lie? Oh, they do, a lot of times. Have you heard of the statement, lies, damn lies, and statistics? Okay.
That's a book, isn't it? It's Mark Twain, isn't it?
It's Mark Twain, yeah. Yeah. Is it actually a book too? Yeah. So that's the theme of the class, okay? Because we're going to talk about not only how great stats is, which is what we're doing here, but we're going to talk about why stats is ineffective and why we, scientists, statisticians, psychologists, whatever, can completely manipulate and misrepresent data for selfish reasons, for research, for ethical, well, non-ethical reasons. So there's a lot of reasons, assumptions about stats that we're going to be talking about quite a bit. Okay, lots of error in what we're going to be calculating. Okay, so how do I do stats? What are some things you're going to do? This is a kind of weird question. Yeah.
Research and study.
Okay, research and study. Yeah. And that is all. Okay? So what will we do? What was that?
I'll just sing crickets.
Crickets. Yes, crickets. Or the Jeopardy theme. Either one. I think good goes. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna have you do that. When no one has a question, an answer, I'll just point to you. Okay. All right. So, oh, can you read that? So just to kind of add on to this, are some examples. So you guys talked about why do you study stats, or when is the best time when you're trying to make decisions, when you see numbers, and you have to kind of figure out what that is, like 4 to 5 dentists, prefer tridents, okay, things like that. So, of course, we need tools to answer questions about human phenomena. We're studying humans, okay? We're all in the social behavioral sciences. There's a couple of us that are outliers, but for the most part, we're all in social behavioral sciences. So we're studying the behavior and the cognitive processes of humans, okay? And humans are messy, but that's what we've chosen to do with our life, okay? So here's an example of a study in the Journal of Health Psychology, okay? And the study is called Why Your Smart Friends Can Seem Like Slackers, okay? So it's kind of like a title that's like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool to read, all right? So you read it, okay? And or maybe you just read the title, and it grabs your attention, and then you talk about that. Well, the smart people are just like really, they're slackers. They don't, they just don't do anything. They just kind of suck air, and that's about it. So smart really doesn't mean someone who works hard. It just means they're like, whatever. That's not what it's about. What the study was about. Anyone have a guess about what that study was really? The findings of that study? It's okay. So what they say is that highly cognitive people who really need to think at a high level tend to isolate themselves more from social situations. So, one of the reasons is that they're constantly thinking at a higher level than the average person. So it's sort of difficult, socially awkward to fit in. So those people, okay, prefer to be by themselves generally, okay? And when you prefer to be by yourself, and you're just kind of off to the side, maybe it looks like you're slacker. Maybe it looks like, okay, they don't want to go out with us. This person doesn't talk to us. This person doesn't return calls. It's not necessarily because they're slackers. It's because it's just kind of how their brain works, okay? So when you look at that, you think, oh, you can come up with some interpretations of that title that are actually, that are not correct, okay? Unless you read the study, right? Yeah?
This is how stuff like drinking a glass of wine every night will lower your chance of heart disease. That's not what
Exactly.
this study was about, but that's what people got from the title.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you guys, man, you know what? I should bring in all the ads that, say do this, do that. Eggs are one example. Eggs were a bad thing, and this is over like 40 years, right? So eggs, too much cholesterol, then eggs, good protein, and then too much cholesterol, then good protein. And right now we're swinging the pendulum where they're good, right? Okay, so it goes back and forth, and we just kind of like, we just kind of follow what we read without thinking about it. There is another article called Farts Decrease Cancer. Of course I'm going to read that. It's like, oh yeah, right, but still it's kind of like, I want to tell somebody about that.
Sounds like science.
It is scientific, okay, but, and what do you think is the science behind it?
Because like farting gets rid of like toxins inside the body.
I'm sorry, what?
It's like it's farting gets rid of toxins inside the body.
Okay, so, gas is basically hydrogen sulfide, and we know that every time we eat, we produce very small amounts of it, really small amounts, some more than others, some larger than others, but more generally.